down into one word. That word would be.
Turning back to this idea of mutually beneficial learning, because wanting everyone to thrive and everyone benefiting from collective well-being, I'd like to come back to you, Ross, and talk about your work weaving learning ecosystems. And can you just help us understand a bit more about how a learning ecosystem supports collective well-being?
Yeah, sure. By the way, Jana, that game sounds fantastic. I mean, what a super example of this idea of liberating learning from the school. That you can learn that anywhere, and it's gamified, so learning becomes fun. I mean, it's a brilliant example of liberating learning, I think. And I think it's also a really interesting example of how, if you think of learning happening always everywhere, that we can liberate learning from just being about schooling. And I think this is really helpful. And by the way, I'm a big believer in schools. I'm just not a great believer in the traditional way of schooling. I think schools have a really important role to play in their communities, but perhaps not just as providers of knowledge, perhaps as facilitators of learning throughout the whole community. So imagine the neighborhood where any one of you lives, and imagine having a school there which is totally open to everyone in that neighborhood, in your neighborhood, young people and old people. And imagine the school's not just about giving knowledge, but it's about helping you and everyone in your community to become a learner who is learning to thrive together. So the whole purpose of learning that is facilitated by the school and happening everywhere in the community is about everyone thriving together. And I think if you start to imagine that kind of scenario, you start to imagine, first of all, the idea that everyone is learning together. So learning becomes a social thing as much as an individual thing. And we're learning to take care of ourselves holistically. We're learning to take care of each other as a community. And we're learning to take care of the whole planet. That means the rest of our species and other species, and the soil and the water and the air, so that we're actually seeing ourselves as a community in the world. And in fact, myself in that learning ecosystem can see myself, is aware of myself as an individual holistically, in the community holistically, in the world holistically. And I'm learning to develop the agency that I need. So to Butaina's point, I'm developing an understanding of how I affect myself and my community and the world. And I'm learning, therefore, to act and choose from moment to moment to care for myself and our community and the world. This is the idea of a learning ecosystem in which everyone is learning to thrive together.
Tomoko, I'd like to come back to your work as a Kenbu Teaching Taito instructor, and you've already given us such a beautiful example of how one of the exercises really translates to life in the real world outside of the practice. But I'm just curious if you have maybe another example that you feel relates to this conversation about liberating learning that you would like to share.
I really feel that the dojo, the studio for our practice itself it's a place to learn how to thrive together as a community. And in the process, we not only develop ourselves, but we help each other to grow. And we help the community to grow, and we help the dojo itself, this whole environment, to grow. And so there's a lot of partner exercises in Kenbu, and there's actually a lot of group exercises with more than 2 people, like 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, doing something together and working in harmony. But in the the partner exercise that we do, it's all based in how to grow with each other, how to help each other. So for example, so there's usually the attacker and the receiver of the attack. So one would maybe do a punch like this, and the receiver would try to receive the attack. And we don't use the word defend or block because we're starting at a point where we've already gone beyond fighting and winning or losing and those kind of things. It's more to, so the attacker attacks with their whole existence, like their whole mind and body and spirit. You put everything in the attack. And that's how the attacker shows respect to the receiver. And so the receiver receives that fully. By receiving the punch and with the intention of bringing each other to the next level of understanding. So it's not a block, it's not a, I don't want you, but it's more of inviting the other and growing together. And with the role that the receiver would do to the attacker, it's with the intention to make the attacker feel very nice after being rolled. So roll that person in a very gentle way, using that person's energy with really nice flow. And afterwards, that person would become happier than before he or she gave a punch. So it's that kind of mutually benefiting each other. And to make that happen, both sides have to be doing it wholeheartedly. There's no compromise there. So you express everything that you have, both sides. And it's like one soul and one soul meeting each other and melting together to create this new thing, this new level of understanding or new world that's mutually beneficial. So it's a process of collaboration and co-creation. And it keeps developing and developing because our ideas and our images and our dreams are infinite. So those things can be embodied in the movement or whatever form that we practice.
I really love this idea of collaborative learning and this back and forth and play between both sides, and then both sides coming out better as a result and maybe stronger and more whole as a result. And I think this idea of learning from each other is also really connected to your work, Utaina, about how you not only are training individuals, but a key facet is helping those individuals also go out and have conversations with others about conservation. So if you could just tell us a little bit more about how you focus on on that part of your work.
I'm totally agree with my colleague and what they said, and also changing the inner attitude of our mind can change the outer aspect of our life. So from there we start also with the youth, and starting working with them in the concept of changing behavior. What we need to conserve our environment, that changing our behavior as a human with dealing with the environment. So from there we have to start working with them and changing the behavior. Changing the behavior is usually it have 5 steps to do with it. First, that you were denying the problem. You don't know about it. You don't know anything that is a problem outside or something happening there. And the second step, it will be that you have to be more aware about what's happening there, and the third one to get the knowledge of the information, and then to take the action. And this is what we have start working with the youth. First, we are targeting the youth in the universities. And to give them, let's say, in the makes, the first step is awakening your inner leadership, your inner beliefs, then you can gain the information you want to know, and then you have to understand what's happening around you and the challenges we have there, and then to take the action, and to take the action, combining it with the knowledge you have get. Not only to take the action without have any knowledge based on it. So you have to start working on making the change with others, and with connecting with others. And after we have given them we have worked with the youth in the university in the three components. The first one is to give them the information and the knowledge about the environment, the challenging we have, and especially with the waste management, and how and why we should do the recycling and everything. And the second component was to work with them in building their leadership skills, and critical thinking, problem solving, and every these soft skills they will need it while they are going through their own life, not only for making the change also. And then we give them also the tools how they can transfer the knowledge they have in a different way, in different tools, by let's say music, drama, anything they can do to transfer the knowledge they have for the school student. So we have, and from there we have connect the university student with the school students, so they can make this conversation together, and they can have union the beliefs of of their own, and of the change they want to see in the community, and they start working on it, and make the action for it also. And from there we have seeing that when you give them the self-confidence, and when you give them the knowledge, and also when you support them in that they can make the change, they can start connection with others and making these let's say collaboration with others, and they can start feeling the environment in another way. It's not as to do a study or something, or a lecture. No, it's something that you have to build the connections between you and between the others, and between the environment, and start making the better for all of us and for our environment.
Great, thank you so much, Butaina. And I love the example, or how you mentioned that students are open to use music or drama to help communicate these conservation efforts in a way that maybe is meaningful for them, and also opens up the streams of communication with others. So it's a really beautiful way that you do that.
The only thing I would that's playing on my mind, I mean, it's really interesting to, we've never met before. It's very interesting to feel those connections between our work and that kind of common direction. And I think I would just be interested to draw attention to that common direction. So in some ways you could say, oh, we're all doing really different things, and where are the connections? I think somebody might think that, but actually my feeling is that there is this common direction, which is to move us towards what we might think of as a better world, or a thriving world, where we can understand these interconnections and interdependencies between our inner selves and each other and the universe, to Tomoko's words. And it feels that my sense is that if we can all just keep that in our minds, then we will continue to move in the same direction, and not get stuck or drawn back into the old meaning of education and schooling.
Great, thank you. Was there another panelist who wanted to touch on that? Or, I mean, that was definitely a thought I had when preparing, as I spoke with each of you individually, and it was like, you come from different fields, but I saw some of the connections between your work. And actually that brings me to, we have a question from the audience that they're just asking, what drives you? Let me make sure I don't read it incorrectly. It's what inspires you to focus on education in your projects?
Yeah, focusing on education is very important, because the first thing you will do in your life from the since you're born is to learn, and you will continue learning through all your life. So it's the most important step in your life is learning and education. If you get the proper education, it will help you to build yourself in another way. If you get a poor education, it will affect your personality and your life also. So the education is most important step in our life, and we are start learning from the day one of our birth to until we leave this universe. So it's very important. Because of that, I have get there, because if you want to make the change, you have to start from learning and education. If you have to do anything in your life, you have to start from that point. And but this is why we get, or for me, why I started from education. To make the change in my community, in my country, it's have to start from the education.